What's good, ladies and gents? Welcome back to MKO Boxing, aka MKO Pugilism, where we talk all things boxing. Remember to like and subscribe on YouTube, follow me on TikTok, all that good stuff. So let's get into this one. So this one, we're just going to talk briefly about Anthony Joshua's next move. Now, apparently, from what I've heard, it's still kind of up in the air, but the two prominent options, the two quote unquote serious options, seem to be the infamous, the problem child, Jake Paul. And this came out of Eddie Hearn's own mouth about Jake Paul being a serious proposition. And you've got Jake Paul as a possibility, crazy as it may sound. And you've also got Tony Yoka, who's also coming off of losses, just as Anthony Joshua is. So you got those two as kind of the options, the things that are being talked about and quite seriously by I haven't heard much from Joshua himself, but from his promoter Eddie Hearn and other people in his team, and from people in Jake Paul's team as well, and from Tony Yoka, he said he's up for the fight. Now, for me personally, out of these two options, I think only one of them is a real option as far as we boxing fans are concerned, and that would be a fight against Tony Yoka. Don't get me wrong, I don't think it's something that I would be like excited for or looking forward to. It's not one of those that gets the juices flowing, but I think in the same breath, I suppose it also is a fight that it kind of makes sense for Anthony Joshua, because it's one of them that he's been inactive for quite a long time, for probably the longest time in his career thus far, since that beating he took off of Daniel Dubois, the knockout and everything. So he's coming off of a bad loss, and in a sense, a guy like Tony Yoka, if you can sort of beat him, if you can do a great job on him, it kind of can show you that you've still got fire in your belly. You still want this. You still want to be champion again, as much as I don't think he really can be, but kind of will give him a bit of confidence back and a bit of belief back if he could get in there and deal with someone like Tony Yoka. I think that makes sense, and it's the same sort of opportunity for Tony Yoka. He's also one that, Joshua, he's kind of been to the top, but Tony Yoka, his career's kind of been a bit of a disappointment, because Olympic gold medalist 4 years after Anthony Joshua, but he's never come anywhere near a world title. He's fallen short against guys like Martin Bakole and never really got a title shot. He's never had one. So his career is a bit of a disappointment in a different way. It's a clash that doesn't really whet the palate. It doesn't really, bring much excitement. But I think if Joshua's on his game, if he really was to take that fight and go for it, brilliant. It would be a good display by Joshua. And it will show us a bit of what he's got left, and whatever Yoka's got left. But I think it's I'd go with AJ on that one. And the second option, Jake Paul, I think it's a silly thing, really, Jake Paul, because if he believes his own hype, believes what he says, he's talking about Anthony Joshua's glass jaw and all this sort of thing. But I mean, again, anyone that knows boxing or has common sense will notice that Joshua has been in there against top level heavyweights, and the guys that he's been taken out by, world champions, Daniel Dubois, Andy Ruiz, and has been beaten by guys like Usyk and stuff like that. And I mean, these are top dogs. These are top guys that punch very, very hard. These are not YouTubers. These are not influencers. And the sheer size difference between these two, Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul, I mean, this is one of those things that I don't even think, in my opinion, should really, I mean, I suppose you could say they're both professional boxers and someone will sanction it, but it's not something I'd really want to see, because Joshua's just too much for him. Not only is he a huge heavyweight, but he's a heavyweight that can really, really bang, really, really punch. And a guy like Jake Paul is, he's a guy that lost to Tommy Fury. And Tommy Fury, it wasn't anything, didn't do anything as an amateur, hasn't really done anything as a pro. He's at best, Tommy Fury's kind of the lower level in the, sort of maybe an area level sort of guy, if that. So, Tommy Fury, that's the sort of low rung of professional boxing. And you've been in there and a guy like that's beaten you, and not to mention at a lower weight, and then you think you're gonna go in there and contend with a former unified world champion and one of the hardest punching heavyweights that there is out there. This is, as John Fury said, Anthony Joshua could knock him out with his bleep, with his dick, basically. And I mean, this would just be a joke of a fight if that ever happened. A lot of people, I'm sure, the appeal of it will be that a lot of people want to see Jake Paul get knocked out. They want to see him get knocked spark out. And a lot of people wanted Tommy Fury to do it. It didn't happen. And no one's really sort of knocked Jake Paul out, or I don't think he's been put down or anything either. So, yeah, I think there'll be a lot of appeal in this thing. I think it's a mismatch. It's a circus. And Anthony Joshua could end it any second he wanted to. The moment Anthony Joshua lands a right hand on Jake Paul goes to sleep and doesn't get up. It's one of them. He's just too powerful of a puncher, too big, too strong, too skillful, too experienced, just too much of everything for a guy like Jake Paul, and it just too much. And but again, as I say, the appeal of this thing will be that Jake Paul has an enormous following, enormous fan base. And Jake Paul, to his credit, which as much as I'm not a big fan of his stuff, but I will say to his credit as a businessman, fantastic. I mean, he got Mike Tyson, fought him on Netflix in front of so many millions of viewers that it was, crashing servers and causing problems on Netflix. There were that many people watching it. He's done good stuff for women's boxing and getting them all on Netflix, and Taylor and Serrano and all that stuff. And he, the appeal of this would be that, I suppose, the bag of it, the money, because a guy like Jake Paul, if Joshua was to do that, once again, he'd probably do it on Netflix. Tens of millions of people would watch it because it's Anthony Joshua, Jake Paul, and that's where the appeal would be. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on it. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and until next time, it's MKO Boxing. Over and out. Yes, my darling.
One thing I need to tell you is to make sure to like and subscribe down below, and to make sure to like, comment, and make sure to do good thoughts. Thank you for watching.